Happy Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. Happy Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. And it is 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And most Thursdays, I show up at this time to talk about psychology, to talk about mental health, to talk about tips and strategies to help us think better so we can feel better and we can do better. My goal, my hope, my intention is to teach you strategies to help you transform trauma into passion, into purpose, into power, profit, all the peace. Yeah. So tonight, I have a very important subject to cover. Very important subject to cover. I think I've avoided this subject. Yeah. I think I've avoided this subject because I'm a human being and I've had relatives who've struggled with addiction because I'm alive. If you're alive, you're going to have relatives who struggle with addiction. And so that can be painful to see, painful to watch. However, part of restoring ourselves from traumatic experiences is to talk through it, to talk about it, and to come to solutions, to come to newer and better ideas for how to manage our pain, how to manage our pain, how to manage our pain. Tonight, I'm talking about a way to manage the pain of addiction, a path, a way through. I'm particularly talking to people from my birth country, Dominica, and our sister islands, because we do not, as a collective, necessarily have many resources to support people who are suffering from addiction. And I say suffering from addiction because that's what it is. Yeah. So I'm hoping that as I present this structure, that it'll fall on the right ears. And by the end of 2024, somebody will establish a 12-step program for people who are suffering from addiction. So addiction is a complex issue. Addiction is complex, and it's one of the reasons I think a lot of us we shy away from it. And I mean, I'm talking about myself tonight. Yeah, we shy away from it. It's very complex, very painful when you live through it, but it impacts millions of people around the world. Okay, I think it's a critical problem. I want to play a little recording for y'all tonight. For those of you in Dominica, and hey, y'all, when I say Dominica, I am not talking about the Dominican Republic. If you come upon this and you're not from the Caribbean, we are not the Dominican Republic. We love them, but they are further north. Dominica is between Guadeloupe and Martinique. We speak English. Dominican Republic, they speak Spanish. Dominica is home to the Olympian gold medalist Thea Lafont Gadsden, who just won our first Olympic medal and our first Olympic gold in the Olympics. So yes. So yeah, so my intention honestly is to see if I can inspire, encourage, motivate the powers that be and the community organizations that be, the religious organizations that be, to create at least one 12-step program in Dominica, and by extension, the other Caribbean islands. Okay? So for any substance to become an addiction, yeah, we think of the typical substances that people become addicted to: alcohol, drugs, prescription medication. And when I talk about drugs, I'm including cannabis. And I know that for my people in Dominica, because we grew up with a different cultural appreciation for cannabis, some of us are not necessarily willing to identify it or to appreciate that it is an addictive substance. I'm talking about it tonight from a perspective of a mental health professional who has worked for 30 years in the field, I have clearly over and over and over and over again seen many people who've been addicted to cannabis and many people who became addicted to other drugs, but many of them started with cannabis. I can't avoid that. It is what it is. And I want to invite you to consider that as well. Yeah. So, for any substance like this to become an addiction, it's got to be impacting your life in a negative way on several levels. For example, many people smoke weed and they're just fine. But many people smoke weed and they become psychotic. Okay? They become paranoid to the point where they stop trusting their parents or their spouses or their kids. Okay? Many people use a substance to the point where they lose their money, they lose their jobs, they get arrested. When you start having consequences like that in your life, you have got a major problem. You've got a major problem. So listen to some of the statistics. In the United States, it's estimated that about 21 million 21 million Americans, or about 6.5% of the population, suffer from some form of substance abuse. 21 million. So when I tell you over 30 years, I mean, if I could count the number of people I've worked with who were experiencing an addiction, it would blow your mind. This includes dependencies on alcohol, illicit drugs. When we say illicit, we're talking about those that if you're found with them, you pay a fine, you get arrested. But again, also people become addicted to prescription medication. You might have had a surgery and your doctor prescribes something to help you with the pain, and you become addicted to that pain medication. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So you might not consider yourself to be an addict, but if it gets to the point where now you can't get up to go to work, or it's causing relationship problems or financial problems, you're facing an addiction. Yeah? Potentially facing an addiction. I mean, 6.5% of the US population, again, that's over 21 million people. Now, for a place like Dominica, which is where I want to focus this presentation on, for Dominica, if you want to do kind of a generalization, 6.5% of our population, if we're using that 70,000 number, which might or might not be that right now, but we're using it, then we're talking about close to 5,000 people today who are addicted to a substance, who are addicted to alcohol or a drug. 5,000 people. Now, these 5,000 people have mothers, fathers, sisters, children, spouses. All of these people get impacted. All of these people get impacted. So that's why we must talk about addiction, and we must create systems and structures in the society to support people, those 5,000 out of your 70,000. Okay? So I want to play this little recording that somebody sent me. Somebody sent it to me because they thought I might be interested. And this is what motivated me to focus on addiction tonight. So I hope you can hear it when I play it. This is an interview, kind of like a street interview between a journalist in Dominica and, just a regular guy. Yeah, regular citizen.
Yeah, so we can talk now. Yeah. I'm at the Bayfront, actually. I'm trying to get to the ground to understand why these young men get themselves deeply involved in drugs? What can you tell me?
Well, to my understanding, with most of the guys I know that smoking drugs, a lot of them start using drugs because of frustration and bad influence. You understand? Because a lot of them, they say weed is the healing of the nation, but weed is the gateway drug to all addiction. Some start smoke weed and then they want a higher high, they choose crack. Well, in my situation, I started smoking weed and I was tricked into smoking crack by a man that's smoking crack. They mix it with the weed and they pass it for me how much times and I had no idea. As like a friend of mine used to be there, he himself was smoking it and I didn't know he's smoking it and it's after. You know, he come and confess
So
to me.
you were not on hard drugs?
No, I didn't just choose to wake up this morning and say, go and buy a pack of cocaine. You check, and that I meet a lot of guys today, even young girls. Man, it is shocking in Dominica now.
So you see girls in that too?
My brother, it is shocking in Dominica now. There are certain gates, they call them, in Roseau. Some school children I just see go in there when they come out school. You know, and it's not just crack that's in Dominica now, yeah? It have meth. You know, in Dominica have meth, powder. A lot of young people on powder right now. You know, I telling you, Matt, we need a solution in terms of the government have to think right now to make a rehabilitation center. We need that in Dominica.
But it appears that you want to get all of the drugs.
If it had a rehabilitation center in Dominica today, right now, I would walk in there and tell them I need help. You know, I want crack is a thing. When I wake up in the morning, I willing not to smoke, but certain time of the day, the cravings hitting me, and when the cravings hit me, Matt, I have to find a way to buy a piece of cocaine. Beg $5, and for them I smoke that piece. Like I come back normal, I feel into work.
How many times a day you take that?
Boy, sometimes I carry book. Sometimes when I don't have money, and the dealers in Roseau right now, they keep in Rose don't have so much drugs, not much cocaine right now.
A lot of dealers too?
A lot of dealers. Well, the place have plenty drugs, but plenty dealers. You know, them man giving you cocaine for nothing, and when they give you the stone, you have to buy by them for the day. They giving it to you for free. Look at open, they call it open eyes. You open in your eyes, and whoever dealer and open your eyes, you have to continue buying for the day. So right now we're in a problem. We're in a serious problem in Dominica, here, brother. With that drug business.
You're one who have always told me that you need help.
I need help. You know, I went to different institutions for help. I went to the government for help.
So this young man is speaking for many people. He's speaking for many people. He is speaking for many people. And if you listen, you hear many themes. You hear from him that he didn't start with hard drugs. Very seldom do people start with hard drugs. It's very seldom. Most people who are addicted right now that I speak with, in my experience, most people who are addicted to crack or cocaine or meth, their first drug was not that. Usually they had cannabis first. I know that might hurt some of the Rasta men's feelings, but it's not my intention. Okay, y'all, it's not my intention. I'm just telling you what I've seen and what most people see. So this is what this young man is saying. Yeah. And what he says also is that there are many dealers. So it's easy to get. It's easy to get these days. Yeah. And if you don't have the money, you get what's called a little open eye, a little piece. But if that person, if that dealer opens your eyes, yeah, brings you back online, then you've got to buy from that person for the entire day. So that what happens is people create an entire lifestyle. Yeah, an entire lifestyle that you might not be familiar with, but he is very familiar with. They have a system. Yeah, there's a system and a structure in place for how it gets done. So if you are the person who is this man who is saying, I am desperate for help, and if there was a rehab facility here today, I would be on their doorstep. Yeah. If you are a relative of this person and you want to help them, there are no resources to help you because you live on a small island. Yeah, that might not have the funds or might not be necessarily allocating the funds. What I'm offering tonight What I'm offering tonight is a way to recover yourself. And this process is best done in groups. And all you need is a knowledgeable enough or a person who's willing enough to learn, to volunteer, to coordinate the group. So I'm offering the 12-step recovery process that was created by Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, and that's been used not only with alcohol, but with drugs. So it's been transposed, yeah, it's used, and it's called Narcotics Anonymous. If you're not dealing with alcohol, but you're dealing with meth and cocaine, cannabis, fentanyl, heroin, all of that. It's been used for people who have become addicted to gambling. Okay, food. So the principles can be applied across the board with most addictions. Now, groups for substance use recovery are powerful, perhaps the most powerful modality that we're aware of. That's why AA and NA work so well, because when you're addicted to a substance, to the point where he says he will do anything to get $5, when you're addicted to a substance to where you will do anything to get just $5 to feel like himself again, is what he says. When you're that addicted, you need the push and the power and the energy of a big group behind you. It's very tough to do it alone. Okay? So I want to show you, I want to discuss, I want to talk about these 12 steps that for many people, those 12 steps have provided a path, a way, a road to get from that confused state that he sounds like he's in and that he's saying that he's in, back to your family, back to their families, back to their wives, back to their jobs, back to themselves, without needing a substance outside of themselves to feel like themselves. Okay, so let's go. Step one. Step one is about honesty. Step one, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction and that our lives had become unmanageable. Is your life manageable if you must wake up in the morning and you need an eye opener to feel like yourself? Is your life manageable if you must beg people for money to get high, to feel better, to feel like yourself? Is your life manageable if your kids don't want to talk to you because you're drunk every night? No. So the first step of this recovery process is one of clear admission that my life is not working. My life is unmanageable right now. My life is unmanageable. Okay? You recognize and you accept that you are powerless in this moment. You're powerless over this addiction. It is bigger than you. The trouble is that many people take a very long path to even coming to accepting that they have a problem. So denial is a huge problem with addiction, because we don't start out being addicted. We start out sometimes doing it for fun. We think, I got this. Okay? But it's very crucial to be able to start this journey. You've got to see where you are. This is too much. This is causing me too much pain. Why am I locked up? Why am I locked up and other people are telling me what to do, when to do it, how to do it? I'm getting hurt. I'm getting physically abused. I'm getting assaulted by other inmates because now I'm in such legal trouble that I'm incarcerated. So it's an acknowledgement of your reality. He is at the first step, isn't he? He's like, this is too much for me. And if there was help, I would show up today. So he's at step one. Step two is we came to believe that a power higher than ourselves could restore us to sanity. People who are addicted to that degree tell us that they feel completely out of control. They feel weak. They feel overwhelmed. Yeah, it's like the drug or the alcohol is stronger than them, or the pills stronger than them. They feel that way. So step two is a mental decision. Yeah, it's a mental decision where you acknowledge that there's a higher power than you and than the substance. Because we need something higher than whatever it is we're experiencing to fix it. And the higher power does not have to be God if you don't subscribe to the idea of God. But many people do. Many people, for them, their higher power is God. Could be Allah, could be the Buddha, it could be Rastafari, it could be your grandmother, your higher self, your wise self. It could be whatever or whomever you view as your God or as your highest, as the highest power in the universe for you. But you've got to come to that second step where you basically, you give that force the job of overcoming the substance and yourself and what it is that you're doing. Step three is recognizing that you have a higher power. You make a choice and you choose to turn your will. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That is understanding that I am not strong enough. This thing has been whooping my butt. I've lost so much. I've lost my job. I've lost my teeth. I've lost weight. I look horrible. You know, you see many people on social media, they'll show you their before pictures, before meth, after meth. Yeah. And then back again after recovery. Yeah. So we make a decision to trust in that higher power. Yeah. And believing in that higher power, now we can kind of, in a way, rest. You know, we've been fighting alone for so long against the substance that won't let us go, but we surrender. We allow our higher power to provide emotional relief, lay our burdens down. That's the principle. We lay our burdens down. Yeah. Now, of course, that requires effort, doesn't it? Because you got to remind yourself of this when the cravings show up, like he said. When those cravings show up, he's got to remind himself, I surrendered this to my higher power. I gave it to God. I gave it to my higher self. It's about personal acceptance. Because when we surrender like that, some of us, we can go into a place of shame, like feeling bad. Well, another way to do it is to really just accept that this is where I am today. I wasn't always here in that position. I know who I am, but I'm struggling. Yeah. So personal acceptance and surrender are important in this step. And spiritual commitment. Commitment is decision that when the cravings come, I'm going to still allow my higher power to handle it. Because I turn my will, I turn my life over to my higher power. If you want to make your way through addiction, this is the process. Yeah. Faith and trust. This step requires faith and trust because think about it. If you've been hooked on meth for years and years and years and years, and you've tried everything you know to try, hasn't worked, it's going to take faith and it's going to take trust that if I keep surrendering and turning my pain and my desire for this substance to my higher power, eventually this thing is going to break. So it takes faith. It takes letting go of control. We like to be in control. We ought to be in control, yeah? But some of us, we do a lot of things to maintain control, even in situations where we have lost control. This process is asking you, asking the person in recovery to let go. So there are many phrases in recovery like let go and let God. Let go and let God. Or I surrender all. Yeah. It takes embracing humility because we are strong people. Yeah. You're used to running your life. And let me tell you, a lot of people, when you see you become addicted, you won't listen to your mother, not your grandmother. A lot of people, they because the substance becomes, all encompassing, all important. So this step takes a release, like a coming to a humble place, coming to a humble place where you're turning all of that. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I want to leave the house at 10 o'clock because I want to get high. I'm turning all of that over to a higher power. I want to use up all my money from my work to get high. I'm turning all of that over to my higher power. That takes humility because I got my money in my pocket. I'm a man. I can do whatever I want to do. Who can stop me? Well, if I surrender to a higher power, I allow my higher power to stop me. But if I ain't got no higher power, I'm the king of that hill and I want it, I'm going to get it. So addiction is very self-focused. Addiction, when people are in their addiction, many people refer to that state as the beast. The beast, because it's like another person shows up and they will have what they mean to have. But if you've surrendered your will, I will have what I mean to have. If you've surrendered that to a higher power, your chances, right, of staying home as opposed to leaving the house to go get high, right? The chances of staying home will become a little bit higher. But it's about surrender. Surrender. Now, there are 12 steps. Do you realize how much work that is for a person who's fighting a craving, like he says, who's desperate? Their body is desperate because their brain has come to need it now. It's very challenging, very hard. And step four is about truth. Step 4 is we made now that we've surrendered to God or to our higher self, our wisest part of ourselves, we made a searching. We dug around, we looked around, we investigated ourselves. We made a searching and a moral inventory of ourselves. We looked at where we were lying, we looked at where we were strong, we self-reflected, and we looked at where we were going sideways and we needed to come back in line. We looked at where we needed to be healed and what that place was inside of us that we were probably using the alcohol to cover or to soothe. Yeah. Maybe we felt weak without the alcohol and we felt stronger, like, like we could talk, we could communicate, our voices were louder and more confident when we were drunk. So we looked at that and we dug deeper to find out, well, what is that really about? What is that feeling in me really about? Where did it start? And what triggers it? And what soothes it besides the alcohol? Yeah. So emotional healing. We take time to heal our emotions. Yeah. We take time to learn what sets us off. We take time to acknowledge our strengths. So we know, what to go to help us crest the wave of a craving. Okay? Because cravings are like, people describe cravings similar to how a woman's labor pains are, where it does this like a wave and it gets to a highest point and then eventually it's going to break like a wave. But they're so intense that you think it's never going to break. And so a lot of people go use, but if they can learn how to maintain what skills they might be able to use, what coping skills they might be able to use to help them manage when that wave is climbing up, eventually the wave will break and it'll ease up again. Yeah. And the more you can do this again, without using, without drinking, without taking the pain pills, is the more you reset your brain. You reset your brain back to where you don't need the pills or you don't need the alcohol or you don't need the coke. Yeah? To survive that wave, that painful wave. So step 4 is about a lot of self-reflection. I tell people you got to become a detective about your own self. You have to know yourself best. You don't need, you're the expert on yourself. You're with yourself 24/7. At 2 o'clock in the morning, you're the person lying down on the bed. So even if you're around other people, they don't know you like you know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, it's time to really get to know yourself. What makes me tick? What makes me upset? What makes me happy? What is the feeling I feel right before I drink? What is that feeling? So a lot of people will tell me something like, there's no feeling, I just do it. That's not true. Slow it down. Slow your brain down and you're going to figure it out. Slow down. Yeah, because many of us, by the time it gets to be this entrenched, it's almost like an automatic, you're an autopilot kind of a trance where you're telling yourself, no, I didn't think, nothing was going on. I was okay. I just drank. No. Slow it down like a movie, rewind it, slow it down. You're going to see when you break it up. Yeah. Because you need to be able to do that to interrupt the pattern that like say this guy became accustomed to doing. You need to see. And so to see, you got to pay attention to it and slow down. All right, let me take some of your comments before we move on to step 5. Glennie says, good evening. Good evening to you, Glennie. Kenrick Sakafet, my brother, he says, I'm in so much favor for rehab. However, it takes so much more than that to rehabilitate such persons. It does. So it's not just rehab is not just detoxing from the substance in your body, right? Your physiological, your body, your biology needs to be detoxed from the substance. But you do in rehab, ideally, people are taught skills. But before they're even taught skills, they're encouraged and they're taught how to do this kind of self-reflection so they understand what is at the root of this addiction. More often than not, there is something at the root, sometimes many things at the root. It's complicated. And so, good rehabilitation programs will focus on that. Really, that's where it's at. Yeah, because we got to reset that. Yeah, you got to reset. It's like, you know, if your plant, if your mango tree is producing worms in the mango fruit, you got to get to the root of the tree and not just clip the branches. You got to figure out what is going on at the root. Yeah, if you can make the root healthy, then the fruit is going to be healthy. So that's a good point. There is much more to rehabilitation than just detox. Detox is just the first superficial step, which is very important because you got to get the stuff out of your system first, right? And deal with whatever your body does as it responds to the stuff not being in it anymore. I mean, the body can become like a little kid, like a tantruming kid when it loses access to something it's become very used to. It's like sugar. If you don't get your sugar, you might get a headache, or your coffee, you might get a headache, right? Or you might throw up, you might get very sick. That's just your body saying, I need that thing again, you know? So you got to move through all these processes first, you know, deal with the physical, the body first before we can even go to the mind and the spirit. Okay? So these steps right here are calling in the spirit from the get-go, right? Early on, mind and spirit, we're like, hey, hold up. I'm making a commitment to this and I'm surrendering to my higher power. If you're trying to deal with addiction just from a body level or just from a mental level or just from a spiritual level, yeah, you need all three. You need all three. Kenrick, you say when you take them to that rehab center, then we ought to think of what is going to give that person some form of value to themselves so they won't be in that same state of idleness. Absolutely. You got to dig deep. People got to dig deep to understand the root, to understand who they are, to get a sense of their value again, right? Their self-esteem. Your self-esteem is the way you esteem yourself. Yeah. So we give ourselves self-esteem, eh? But sometimes there's a lot of stuff, trauma, the way people talk to us or about us, pain that can interfere with that. So you got to reset all that in a rehab center. In a great rehab center, these things get done. Kenrick, you asked, I'm wondering what or who the root cause is. It's always a root. So a process that I use is called hypnotherapy. The aim of hypnotherapy is to go to the root. We are going to the source. We're going to find out what experience is at the root of all of this flailing around you doing, because more often than not, there is. And in a state of calm, we can reset that. Yeah? The people responsible are the ones we pay taxes to. Well, absolutely. Every healthy society has got to provide these healing spaces for the 6% of us whose brain are not going to be able to handle the little alcohol. Everybody's drinking the alcohol, but 94% are going to be fine, but the 6.5% are not. 94% are going to be able to smoke weed and be okay, but 6.5% or so might not. And so we have to take care of them. Everybody goes to the doctor, you know, you get a little pain medicine to help you be able to sleep at night after a horrible surgery. 96% will be all right. Yeah, 94%, but that's 6.5%. They're not going to be able to stop taking the pain medicine. So we have to plan for that 6.5%, because in a population like Dominica, that's 5,000 of your people. 5,000. In the US, it's over 21 million people who are doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers, athletes, wise people, pastors, priests. It is no respecter of persons. Nobody gets spared. Okay? People you love, yeah, nobody gets spared. Okay? So the community, and so my call to action tonight is for Dominica, right? It's sister islands, but particularly Dominica. For people who can hear me, my call to you on the ground, churches, political organizations, individuals with a heart for it, yeah, the social services department, is to create at least one AA group in Dominica that is healthy and functioning, and one NA group for the people who are addicted, like this young man. Just one. Just one. And all you got to do is to show up and work these steps with people. That's it. Yeah. Every functioning, healthy society has got to have these public health structures in place for the 6%. Difference in environment could also bring a change in perspective. Absolutely. One of the big points in recovery is to change your people you used to be around, your places you used to go, and the things you used to do. So your people, places, and things have got to change. I've got to change because you've developed some associations with some of these people, places, and things that are not good for you. He talks about it. He talks about it. Yeah, absolutely. You are correct. Okay, so step 5, it's a lot of admission. It's a lot of power that you're reclaiming, as a person, because you've surrendered it to the drug. So you're reclaiming your power with step 5 with confession. We admit it to ourselves and to another human being or other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs. We tell ourselves and we tell another human being, a therapist, a coach, the group, right? The AA group, the NA group. We stand up and we admit, I stole $100 from my mother's wallet, from her purse, to buy drugs. Yeah. I lied to my child when I said I couldn't buy books for you because I had the money, but I wanted to go drink instead. So this encourages deep introspection. You got to go deep because the problem is deep. It increases self-awareness. Who am I? Become a detective about yourself. So you can confront, you can see, you can identify, and you can make a decision about what to do about those flaws that are in you. Those things where you're off, where you're offline, the little lies you're telling yourself, the little lies you're telling other people to justify and to continue with the substance use. You have to see that without denial, without justification, without explaining it away. You got to see it. You got to take accountability for it. Yeah, man, that was me. That's all me. I did that. It wasn't because, oh, my father was abusive as a child, and so that's why now I am who I am. You move past that and you take accountability because you're not the only person who had messed up parents, and everybody's not out there getting high. Yeah. By doing that, by sharing our wrongs with another human being, we start practicing how to be open about our feelings. Y'all, if it's one skill you want to learn, is how to share with other people the fact that you're feeling what you're feeling. Sad, mad, glad, scared. Yeah? You build trust when you become that vulnerable with other people. Yeah, it creates a supportive environment. So you do it and the other person feels safe to do it too. Yeah? It's also for emotional release and for healing. Because when we bring those emotions up that we used to hide, like guilt and shame, you give it air and you give it sunlight. And shame and guilt, they don't like that. They don't exist well in the light. Shame and guilt, they want you to be quiet. You did something when you were 15. Somebody did something to you when you were 12. Bring it up. Bring it up and give it light. Because at the root of a lot of addiction is that shame, yeah, and that guilt that is stuffed inside of you, and it needs a way to express itself. And often we use substances to do that, but they cause so many other problems. When all we got to do is to say, I feel so ashamed because of what my stepfather did to me, or what my older cousin, about what happened to me, what I didn't do. I failed an exam and people called me XYZ. There's a lot of shame in people who use substances, but you got to learn how to just say it. You just have to say it. I feel ashamed because of ABC, at least to one other human being. It's a strong foundation for change, because it's about honesty, yeah, clarity. It is what it is. Radical acceptance. This is me. I'm not perfect, but I am 100% me, and I'm good. I am good enough. I do not have to be perfect. I am good enough. Yeah. Step 6, we were entirely ready after you've moved through that process. This stuff takes time, doesn't it? To make all of these insights, to have all of these insights about yourself. If you're digging, it takes time. So now you come to step 6 and you are entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Where I'm weak, higher power, Allah, God, the Buddha, my higher self, where I am weak, where I am flawed, pluck it out, pull it up, eliminate it. We acknowledge our defects, complete recognition, see it. I'm a liar. I lie. I have lied so much to my father. When I said I was there, I was not there. I was out drunk, cheating with so and so. Radical recognition and acceptance of your character flaws. It's an honest appraisal. It is what it is, where you're looking at the habits and the attitudes, those things that determine whether or not you grow as a person or not, or you stay hidden in shame about it. It takes trust in that higher power. Yeah, it takes trust in that higher power, and that is ongoing. That is ongoing because we are human beings. And so in AA, they say, I'm one day at a time. Because if I look at my recovery for the next 20 years, it's too much. It's too much. Let's just get through this day. Let's just get through this moment. Okay? This phase, this step is an emotional preparation and a spiritual preparation. Yeah. It might include skills that you've got to apply now, like meditation, sitting in quiet. There are many different types of meditation. You can listen to music, you can listen to somebody talk, guided meditation, you can stare at a flower. Yeah, you can focus, you can sit in quiet. Yeah, and just allow your thoughts to pass. That's a way to meditate. Yeah, you can go sit at the beach and just listen to the waves. Or pray. Or pray. But you definitely got to make a commitment to your personal growth. So we're not staying where we were at the position where we were choosing other substances outside of ourselves to make us function. No, we are now willing to grow. We're willing to apply the tools to grow to the next level, to overcome, to come over the addiction. So instead of the addiction being here and I'm there feeling the burden, well, I come over it. Yeah, I come over it, I overcome it. Step 7 is about humility. We humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings because we got these flaws, we got these defects, we got these ways of thinking we picked up from our parents at home. They were so negative, or they called us so many names, we started believing what they said about us. Yeah. And we became vain, or we became thieves, or liars. Yeah. So we asked God to remove those shortcomings. That bad habit we had about talking bad about ourselves, we ask God to pluck that out. Yeah. We acknowledged our limitations, asking God to remove those things that are getting in our way. I ask the guys I work with these days, all right, dude, you've been incarcerated before. You tell me you've been incarcerated on 3 different occasions. I need you to think about what's been tripping you up. Because those are big things, for you to have been released from prison once, to come back a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. Something's tripping you up, and it's inside of you, but you gotta do the self-reflection to see it, or else you might think, oh yeah, man, my PO, my probation officer, he was on my back. No, but there must have been an opening. I must have, you must have opened the door somewhere to give them access. Yeah. So this is about cultivating humility and growing and committing to change. Committing to change is tough work, but it's necessary work. If you do not make a commitment, you are easy to fall off in the middle when it gets hard. So you got to make the commitment to the end of the process, from the onset, from the get-go. Okay? Step 8, after all this lying and cheating and stealing, step 8, I made a list of all the persons I had harmed and I had hurt, and I became willing to make amends to them. I became willing. People who are in addiction, I'm telling you, have a lot of challenges facing reality. So they tell themselves a lot of stories to maintain, to feel okay about themselves, even as they're doing wrong. So this step, you have to become willing. Even before you do it, you have to become willing. I talked about stages of change last week. You got to come to a contemplation of doing the new behavior now. This is about accountability and self-reflection. So those are themes that they keep coming up in recovery. Self-reflection and taking accountability. Self-reflection. Who am I? Why am I doing this? What's in it for me? What is the payoff for me doing this stuff? Yeah. For me working all day to get high. There's a payoff in it for me. Yeah. I have to do a comprehensive inventory. Here's something that's important while you're in recovery: self-compassion. Self-compassion, because people who are addicted to substances, they've heard a lot of bad words from a lot of people around them. Yes or no? Because many people would have already been saying to them stuff like, why are you doing this? Stop. You need to quit this stuff. I'm not talking to you anymore. Things like that. Don't come to my house. Things like that. Yeah. So you need to apply a lot of empathy and understanding to yourself. Especially to the wounded part of yourself that does not feel strong enough to come over the addiction. Yeah. But this stage is about coming ready to make amends. Because now step 9 is the action. Step 8 is the I became willing. Because you can be ready, but you might not be willing. 8, you got to come to the state of willingness. And 9, you made direct attempts to make amends to the people you hurt, the people you stole from, the people you lied to. I keep telling you all about moral injury, and politicians who just keep lying. They're hurting themselves. So to come back to a state of righteousness and purity, you have to make amends to the people you lied to. A lie is a vicious thing. Gossip about a person, like bad talking, that's a vicious thing. Yeah, that's emotional and verbal aggression. So we've got to say, I'm sorry. We've got to make atonement, at one ment. We got to come back as one. We were separated by this substance addiction because we were always arguing. I can't see eye to eye with you. Ugh, right? You got to go, leave my house, stuff like that. But we come back, we ask for forgiveness, and we make atonement. If I stole your money, I repay you. I work it off. I do something to make you whole again. It's not just I'm sorry. It's I'm sorry, but I got to make you whole again so that we can become on one accord again. We can reconnect again. So the I'm sorry alone is not enough. I'm sorry I hurt you, but I stole your money. I've got to pay you back. Yeah. Now, sometimes the person you hurt might not yet be ready to listen to you. They're still hurt and they're still mad. So that step, you make the attempt, but you cannot do it if it would injure the person. Because you're on a path of healing and restoration. You do not want to cause more pain. So it might hurt you to not get forgiveness from a person that you hurt last year, but that's part of your pain. You've got to bear that pain, as opposed to hurting the person just so you can feel better. Okay? So that step is important, that making atonement, if they don't want to talk to you and they don't want to hear you're sorry, you've got to keep your sorry to yourself because they don't owe you a sorry after you did what you did to them. Okay? So that step is about personal responsibility, direct and clear communication, using words that both of you understand to be very clear. I'm sorry I hurt you. How can I make it up to you? That's the second piece of atonement. Yeah? You got to think about the impact. Think about the impact. Yeah? I robbed you, I stole your TV and I sold it. The impact is I lost access to my shows that brought me joy and relaxation. So you gotta compensate me for that. Yeah? But this is such an important step because it helps to heal you, the addict, and it helps to heal the person that was hurt, your kids that you didn't go see. Like there's a story now of Simone Biles, the gymnast, the American gymnast who won gold, so many gold medals. Her biological mother is now saying that, well, if you want to talk to me, I want to talk. You know, I appreciate that because she's at least she's not forcing herself, you know, on the daughter. You know, she's not forcing her. And other people ought not to force that child who was abandoned by this adult human being to go now as if she's the one who has to make amends. It's out of order. That mother has to wait until that child says, yes, okay, it's okay, I'm ready to hear you now. Apart from that, the judgment has to disappear. It's got to disappear. Yeah. So making amends is generally seen as a very positive step because this one comes with action and it is an attempt to balance the scales out. Although it might never balance the scales out, how is it going to balance the scales out if you were, I was going to say cracked out, but you know, you were addicted to crack and you abandoned me and other people had to raise me, and now you come and you say you're sorry. How can I make it good for you again? How can we make it right? There's 20 years that we've lost of my foundational years. I'll never get them back, will I? Yeah. So that part can be very challenging to balance the scales again, because sometimes the hurt is so deep. Yeah. The hurt is so deep. So the person in recovery has to, if you, the good thing about working these steps is probably will have been appointed what's called a sponsor, or you might have been told to get a sponsor. A sponsor is a person who's already walked the path, right? And that person can help you prepare for people you're trying to make atonement with, who are like, get out of here. I will never talk to you again. That's very painful. And that could be a trigger for somebody in recovery to go back to use. But that's why, like the group process is important, because people can support you while you're trying to make atonement. It's a very tough step. Yeah. Or your sponsor can walk you through that or support you through that step. Step 10 is we continued. It's a continual process. Just because you ask forgiveness this one time, right, doesn't mean no, you're the king of the hill. It's a lot of humility in recovery. We continue to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, we didn't let it pile up this time. We didn't wait 20 years this time. As soon as we realized we did wrong, or they told us, ouch, that hurts, we apologized. We promptly admitted it. So you don't accumulate more bad karma on yourself. Right away, we promptly admitted, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Yeah? Again, key here, self-reflection, accountability, and a growth mindset, a willingness to do better, a willingness to excel, to go higher. What that does it improves relationships, because we start to restore trust again. People start to be able to depend on us again, because now they know that we're not just going to walk off on them when we're angry and go get high, that we're going to stand there and feel their pain, and we're going to say, I'm sorry, I will try to do better next time. Step 11. As we move through this, working these steps, people in AA and NA tell you, if you work the steps are going to work for you. Yeah? As you keep moving up these steps, we sought through prayer, step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation, two powerful tools in recovery, prayer and meditation. We sought through prayer and through meditation. Your spirit has got to be involved in your recovery process to improve our conscious contact with God or higher power as we understood them, praying only for knowledge of our higher power's will for us, plus the power to carry it out. Because we're like, look, I don't know what's coming tomorrow. I don't know what I'm facing tomorrow. Yeah? But if I pray for God's will or my higher power's will for me, yeah, let me also pray for the power to carry it out. Because a lot of us, we know God's will. We know our God's will for us, but we're weak, or we think we're too weak to carry it out. So recovery involves asking for that higher power to also infuse you with the fortitude to do the right thing, to do the thing that keeps you sober, to do the thing that keeps you well and connected to your kids who you lost access to because your drug use was too painful for them. Yeah? Through prayer and meditation, we seek God's will, and we seek the strength and the power to carry it out. This step underscores the importance of divine support. We are body, mind, spirit. And those people who try to recover, yeah, I got this, more often than not, they struggle. They struggle too much. It doesn't have to be this way. And again, if you cannot connect to God, I'm sure you can very likely connect to understanding that I am wise. I have a level of wisdom. Everybody does. And even if I'm acting the fool, I have a highest point. yeah, of wisdom, even if it's not as wise as other people. So I'm going to ask that that wisest part of myself runs the show. That's if that's where you can start there. Because a lot of us we've been so traumatized, we don't trust life, we don't trust the universe, we don't trust God, we don't trust our parents, we don't trust because we've been so hurt, yeah, and abused and battered. Yeah. But like I said, you, even if you think you are weaker and more whatever than other people, everybody's got their highest point on their pole of wisdom. So connect to that part, yeah? Or connect to a wise version of yourself that you see in 10 years. You know, in 10 years, I'm going to be 64. My hair is completely white. And that person, they see my next 10 years, so they have that information already. My 80, 90-year-old self, it's seen me walk through fire, it knows where to guide me. So you can connect to that part, okay, for your higher power. Finally, step 12, you got to pay it forward. You got to do for other people what was done with you and for you. So having had a spiritual awakening, if I work these steps, as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics, sexaholics, foodaholics, drug addicts, and to practice these principles through all of our affairs in life, at work, at church, at play, in the car, on the elevator, in the grocery store. We try to act on certain principle, on these principles. We try to live this formula. Yeah. So this step 12 is about a spiritual awakening, like an opening, you know, like an understanding that many people have when they've worked these steps of recovery, where they come to that understanding, you know, where you get the reward of having made the sacrifice of not getting high. Yeah. Many people restore themselves to such a place that they reconcile with their families who their drug use was just so painful for. The families had to draw certain lines. You know, if you were stealing from your family or your spouse, at a certain point they're going to say no, no, you got to live somewhere else. But a lot of people, when they've worked through these steps and they've done the atonement and they've done the surrender and the choosing and the commitment to walk according to their higher power's will for them, in the power that their higher power affords them and supports them with, you transform, you change, you know, you recreate yourself, you re-engineer, you redesign yourself. You become a different person if you do these 12 steps. Yeah. And so the gift keeps on giving if in this step you pass it on. Your new spiritual insight, no, you can become a sponsor to the person starting step 1. Yeah? So this program, I'm telling you, has stood the test of time. The sense of community that people in AA have is out of this world. A lot of people, they're not ready to stop drinking, but they go for the camaraderie, and eventually then, you know, they buy in. Yeah, very powerful process. In recovery, like nothing is, few things in life are a straight line. Yeah, I talked about the change process last week. Relapse is a part of recovery. So don't be too shocked if on that path you relapse. You might have to go back to an earlier step, or your person that you're working with, if you're the one who decides to take up the mantle of creating an AA group in Dominica and an NA group in Dominica, the people in your group, they're going to relapse more than likely. It's part of the change process. But at least they're not going to start from the very, 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 very first step. Yeah. Which is, hey, we acknowledge we have a problem. You know what I mean? So you keep building on the steps, you keep building on the steps, you keep building on the steps. And the force of the group pushes and pulls people towards recovery, it supports them. Yeah. So my call to action tonight is for community organizations in Dominica, political organizations in Dominica, social service organizations in Dominica, churches in Dominica. One of you or all of you coordinate and create at least one AA group in your church. Give a group of people an opportunity to come to your church for 1 hour a week to work a step of recovery. And maybe the pastor can chair the meeting. You just have to Google how to run an AA meeting. You just have to Google what are the steps right there. If you need my support, email me, text me behind the way on Facebook, and I will help you. But we need people on the ground, real live people. Your government has not done it. You don't know if they'll ever do it. But the people have to take care of each other. It doesn't take much to start an AA group. It does not. Okay? And these are informal groups. They don't have to be, you don't need a therapist to run an AA group. Okay? You don't. So please consider one in the north, one in the south. Yeah, a church can offer 1 hour of space for people to meet. And somebody in the church can start it. You just got to show up like you would for prayer meeting. Yeah, 1 hour and work the steps. Just sit and talk and be with each other. So that the 6.57%, 5,000 is what the numbers would look like given Dominica's population. Don't have to suffer alone. They don't have to suffer alone. And they don't have to feel as if they've completely lost hope just because the social network does not have rehab centers. At least start with an AA group, at least start with an NA group. Clenise, you say, is there any way I can help? Please let me know. Something to consider, Clenise, is, I don't know, connecting with somebody back home. Again, the churches have space. Yeah, there are some community centers. I know our people have a lot of stigma and shame. Shame, though, is one of the reasons that a lot of people's addiction persists, because there's shame in them, there's shame in the family, there's shame in the community about them. You know, that they're the what we've cast aside our relatives, calling them Sula and calling them Paro. We cast them aside. Yeah. What we got to do though with addiction is you got to pull your people in. You got to pull them in, because addiction, it causes a lot of disconnection. Yeah. And some people can lose hope because they feel as if nobody would love them if they knew the things they had done to get high or the things they had done to them. Yeah. But we can work through these processes. We can work through these steps and come back to a place of restoration. So seriously, if you're maybe shy, you know, there's a thing called imposter syndrome, where we think, man, there's no way I could do that. I couldn't do that, you know, but we need people on the ground with a heart for the community, with a heart for people, and a willingness just to be there and to guide two people who come through, three people who come through on a Thursday, 4 people, 5 people. I mean, some groups get really big, but the structure needs to be there. So it needs to be there. It needs to be there. Okay? It needs to be there. In the meantime, just do a search on Facebook for a recovery group for Narcotics Anonymous on Google. Just Google. You might be able to join a Zoom meeting with thousands of people from, like from tons of places, but who are there doing the same thing that you're trying to do. It's great to do it in person because you can create relationships and buddy up, and you have somebody walking in the community who knows your struggle and you all are on the same path. It's a lot of power in that, so you don't feel so alone, but yeah, but this is my offering tonight. There are ways, there are paths to recovery. There are paths to recovery, and the 12-step process that AA offers can be transferred to drugs, food, lots of other addictions. Okay? Thank you all for watching. I hope I see you soon. I will say nous parlons l'autre fois. That is Creole, Dominica Creole 4. We will speak another time. All right? Peace. I just must say that Kenrick says in Dominica, they need to put all the fishermen making $45,000 a day on the seas, for who knows, it might be the cook, it might be God knows what that they're bringing in, right? Thank you, Glennis. Thank you for listening all the way through. Kenrick, I appreciate you guys. Share the live. Somebody out of those 5,000 people who are probably right now struggling with addiction in Dominica might read this and realize that there's hope. Okay, and that they don't need to hide and walk through this path alone anymore. All right, y'all. Happy Thursday.